Hello, everybody. It is me, Carson Zadroga. Or in other shows, you might know me as Carson Harvey. Long reference. Today, we're going to have another debate, press play debate. Today, we're going to do Marvel versus DC. Which one has better characters? Each candidate is going to give their opening statements. We're going to start with Justin Todd Brown right over here.
Alrighty, well, what is a movie without its characters? And which cinematic universe is, more successful and well known? That's right, it's Marvel. I feel like Marvel characters are so compelling that they hold up movies very, very well, and if DC really had the better characters, their movies would be a whole lot more successful than they are.
If DC is supposed to have the greatest heroes, then how come they aren't making successful movies as Marvel is? Like, you can't just blame like directors and just writers. There's a lot more when it comes to the characters, and I feel like Marvel does a lot better than DC.
Basil?
I just think, like, when it comes to DC, their characters just have more arc. It's not a ton of little kids who got superpowers now, like, yeah, they all get 20 movies each. It's, like, they're just not producing as many movies, true, but it's because they don't need to. Their characters have that development in and of themselves, inside the comic books, inside the few shows that they have, rather than just it being, oh, we're gonna have a show or movie completely about this one character, and that's all we're gonna focus on.
Okay, your time is up. Griffin?
It's true that DC has been producing less movies than Marvel, but I have to disagree with the characters in those movies. Like, in DC, it feels like they're more serious. Like, you can feel relatable to characters. Like, it feels like it's actually happening. For Marvel, it's just straight up goofiness. Like, they'll just throw in any jokes to make people laugh. It's only focuses on kids. But for DC, the characters look like it can be focused on everyone. And that's just beautiful.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, yeah. Okay. If you're saying that they're relatable, how would you say that Bruce Wayne is relatable when he's a multi-millionaire? When there's only a few multi-millionaires, just in general. Like, Spider-Man is like the most relatable because he's a teenager and he has struggles as teens, which most of us does. So.
I feel like you guys missed my point. My point wasn't that the DC cinematic universe has less movies. It's that every DC cinematic universe movie that released around the same time as a Marvel cinematic universe movie did worse, categorically, than the Marvel movies. Like, it's not just that, they have a less expansive cinematic universe, it's that it's clearly, at least to audiences, not as good and not as well known.
I think with that, it's just looking at what what audience you're targeting. It's like Marvel movies are always going to be more centered towards the younger audience and children and stuff. Where you're looking at the new Batman movie and Joker, which are a lot more cynical and serious and about like the real world around them. And it's like children aren't going to be going to their parents to be like, oh, can we go see the new DC movie that came out? They're always going to choose Marvel over that because it's more pandering towards them.
Endgame was the highest grossing film of all time. I don't think that's just children. I think that's people who were tuning in to watch the end of Iron Man's 15-year arc that they had been building up. You talk about, DC characters have, bigger arcs and everything else. How about an arc so big it takes an entire cinematic universe to fit it? Like, you talk about it being more lighthearted, DC is more serious, but clearly people want lighthearted. Lighthearted doesn't necessarily mean bad.
Sure, I can understand that we can all want to be going to a lighthearted and comedic type of movie from time to time, but it always feels like that's what they're focusing on the most. I feel like if they should just take different aspects, like have a more serious, a more horror-like film with like other superheroes, and just making all of them be all goofy like.
They did a more horror-adjacent movie. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was literally directed by Sam Raimi. I mean, you can go a variety of angles with that sort of thing, and in fact, the Marvel movies do get pretty serious sometimes. I mean, there are a few different times where they have thought about the fact that Captain America never gets to return to the past that he was fighting for. He's someone that has been in a world that has left him behind. I mean, is there really, are there really arcs that can get, more serious than entropy?
And also, like, whenever Spider-Man wanted to have the perfect world where a certain amount of people know who he is and then everyone else does, but he had to make the sacrifice, and it's just a very serious tone. Yeah, you're going to get some more comedic stuff, but you do have, as Justin said, like, more serious moments that really elevates Marvel to what it is.
Yeah, it does have its serious moments, but they're few and far between in a lot of their in a lot of their movies and shows and stuff like that. They don't show up as often as like somebody who's like looking for a big story arc would want. Compared to like when it comes to like Joker and like there's so many different iterations of Joker. Like the comic book, like all the different comic book versions of Joker. We have the newest version of Joker, which is way more cynical and like more steeped in reality than any previously seen. So it's just, and like, I feel like when it comes to like movies like the Joker, it's like those will have more of an effect on, I would say, society than any Marvel movie would.
Let's not also forget Dark Knight's Heath Ledger Joker, who's by far the best written Joker ever. It literally makes it when seeing Heath Ledger Joker in action, it feels like he had every right to be a villain. So like other Jokers in the comics, it's a little bit confusing because he falls into a tub of acid and he comes out to be the most evil person you'll ever meet.
But do you need all these Jokers? Like, you keep saying like, oh, this Joker's great, this Joker's great, but like Marvel, like they perfected these heroes and villains where they don't need to keep making iterations of themselves, and why?
Absolutely. Like Andrew's saying, like, if DC's characters are so good, then why do they have to keep bringing back the Clown instead of, actually expanding on all the other characters? Why can they not keep Batman's characterization consistent? Why in Batman vs. Superman, does Batman straight up kill people when that's like the one rule that he's supposed to follow, his like one piece of characterization? In fact, nobody seems to be acting in character in Batman vs. Superman. And if their characterization's so strong, if their characters are so good, why do directors constantly feel like they need to break off of that and change that to make their stories compelling?
That is true that they are constantly changing characters all the time, like changing how their characters are written in certain aspects. But also, when it comes to like Marvel characters, there is little to no change in a character at all over time. They stay pretty much the same from the beginning to the end. I'll say with an exception of Iron Man. I feel like Iron Man had some big change throughout the movies, but like a lot of them I didn't really feel like there was much change like throughout like their personalities and stuff. Like with Hulk, yeah, he managed to like become one with the Hulk, but he was still the same person. Like he didn't have like a mental change or anything. He was just less the Hulk.
I mean, how many big mental changes do DC superheroes have that can't be compared to Marvel superheroes? We see Spider-Man go through an entire arc of one, learning to be a hero, and two, learning to process the grief and loss of everyone he's ever had. At this point in the MCU, Spider-Man has nobody. I feel like there aren't as many like clearly defined arcs for all of the superheroes, but I feel like the ones that they really want to focus on, they really do.
Well, if you want to talk about the Batman, who literally lost both of his parents right in front of him, like that's a big loss arc. That's his origin.
That happened like 20 years ago. That's his whole, like, I'm not saying like, oh, he should just get over it, but like we're meeting him at a point where he's already done a lot of processing. We're meeting him at a point where, he hasn't actively lost that person in the last like 2 years. It might be a part of his character and a part of his characterization, but it's not as much an arc as it is just one of his motivators.
But you can't forget that Batman has lost a whole bunch of Robins out in the field, and seeing them getting killed in action could be really way more traumatizing than seeing his parents just get shot at. And not to mention, there's been other times when Alfred almost dies or just completely dies, and that breaks Batman completely. It just proves that even though he's experienced so much training over the years, he can still be beaten, he can still be weak and broken.
So he keeps recruiting 12-year-olds? The Caped Crusader, more like the Caped Child Endangerer.
Like more on what he said. Like
Silence.
Oh, okay.
sorry.
I want you all to have some beautiful closing statements. You have approximately 20 seconds. So we are going to start now with DC. So Basil, you may go.
I think all in all, DC's characters just have more of a story to them and go through different changes and are just more realistic and down to earth people than Marvel characters will be.
Okay. Griffin?
With DC characters, it really feels like you go in depth with their overall backstory and their journey throughout being a superhero or a supervillain. And with Marvel, it just seems lazy and goofy. And that's not facts.
All right. Andrew?
Yeah, I just disagree. I think not only does Marvel have the large quantity of heroes that people know, but also just like quality-wise, I think that they have much more depth and much more character into them, and so yeah, that's why I go with Team Marvel, and also doesn't include the fact that I love Spider-Man. Just saying.
Justin?
If I wanted to see real people being depressed, I'd go outside. When I want to see superhero media, I look at Marvel.
Oh, he got you good DC fans. Okay. Well, that is going to be the end of this debate. Yeah, you got roasted. I'm sorry. That's saying someone who likes Batman. So, yeah, that was this Press Play episode. That was brutal. That was really brutal. We're going to go and now play some Among Us. That's not going to end any friendships. Everyone have a good day and say goodbye. Everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye. Have a good time.
Bye. I'll remember
Bye,
all therapy.
everybody.